So we as human beings think that we've actually come to this place called Earth. And some of us kind of condemn that, and we wish we weren't here, or don't even show up completely. Some of us don't even show up. So it's an interesting place, this earth plane, because we are divine beings. And it's hard to understand this, but we're divine beings, and we've never left heaven. We've never left. We're right now actually still there. The only thing that's changed is that we went to sleep. In other words, we went into a trance while in heaven. When we asked ourselves what life would be like if we weren't in heaven, we then started imagining what it would be like. And that's what this whole earth plane is about. So in time, as earth measures it, this happened billions of years ago. But in heaven, there's no time. So here's the absolute of heaven. And if we still use something to measure time, time doesn't even exist in heaven. We had to say to ourselves, what would life be like without God? Then came duality and the measurable and ups and downs and war and peace and all these things we call life. Here we call it life, when in fact it's death. Because everything we experience, even the most wonderful aspects of life, come to an end, which means they are all about death. The timelessness of heaven, this never happened. But what seems to have happened is the children of God said, I wonder what life would be like if we could separate. And in that moment, the Big Bang takes place. So imagine in this infinite, capital R, reality, timelessness, just beingness. However, when we said what would life be like if we could separate, all of a sudden there were two worlds. The reality of God and then everything else that we could dream. That's why science will say there's potentially an infinite number of dimensions even. Not 4, not 5, not 12, potentially an infinite number of realities or dimensions. Why? Because there was no limit to us wondering what life would be like without God. We're infinite beings, so our minds exploded with an infinite number of possibilities. But one of the things that happened is measurable time. So there's the isness of God, and then all of a sudden, tick, tock, time began. And no matter how many billions of years went by, it all still gets traced back to a moment in timelessness where we wondered what it would be like to separate, and in the same second we answered the question. You can't. Hey, I wonder what life would be like if we could separate. Oh, that's right. How do you separate from all? It doesn't make any sense. I mean, a 5-year-old could figure that out. But we didn't. Instead, we went into the fear of what if it happened. So fear became the engines, the power. Even though God's the only creative power in the universe, there's an uncreative power. Creative power of God means love-based. Creative power means love-based power. Uncreative means fear-based power. So we suddenly manifested this uncreative, fear-based power, and the whole universe was created by an uncreative, fear-based power. So this engine powered the entire thing. And if we remain afraid in our lives, it perpetuates this universe that we think we live in. And when things like pandemics or crisis of any kind, even a breakup of a relationship, when we think these things are happening and react to them, it continues perpetuating. It's like perpetual motion devices. It's like free energy devices. What's happening is fear keeps the momentum of the false universe. And there are moments when we get wise enough to say, well, wait, why don't we just stop investing in fear? And that becomes scarier than the fear-based reality we were in the first place. Because people go, no, wait a minute. Who moved my cheese? Somebody took my reality and shifted it. It's like I'm in the middle of a divorce, and all my friends came over. We had a crucify him party. for my divorce. We all planned and they all empowered me. And we did pin the tail on the X and all kinds of, all the kinds of games we played to empower me and give me the knowing I could do this divorce. And now I'm feeling all peaceful. Like I don't need to really do any of that. That can't be right. You call your friends. Oh no, that can't be right. Peace? No way. This world will try to tell you there's something wrong with you when you feel peace instead of fear. And during a pandemic too. You know, it's okay, here I am. You know, Nostradamus walking in the villages during the Black Plague and not being afraid of getting sick. You know, Edgar Casey saying, hey, whatever I need to do to help. And he dies overworking himself. It's okay for us to say, I'm not going to be afraid. I'm going to do what needs done. And nurses, social workers, they're all in those trenches, man, doing work that most people don't want to know about. Healing was one of the questions that came up here this morning. And healing is, you know, people think healing's, you know, just simply, you know, a little Bach flowers and some aromatherapy and everybody's at peace. But if your client starts screaming about childhood trauma that you don't want to hear about because it's too much for your nervous system, that's okay. But that's still needed. Someone's got to be able to navigate the trenches, man. Someone's got to be able to go in an operating room and do things. Someone's got to deal with death. Somebody's got to deal with past life traumas or whatever it happens to be. Healing isn't just pretty stuff where everybody's like, oh, I feel my chakras are aligned. Thank you. Oh, you know, peace be with you. Namaste, namasko, adios. You know, that's not what healing actually is about. That's part of it. That's nice. But when someone says, man, I've never been hugged once in my life. I've never felt safe. Would you mind? Hug them. Go into those dark places with people. We think we went into time. And what happens is the timelessness of God became a point of believing we could separate, and it can't happen. We're actually still in God, but not choosing to step out of the point where we thought we could separate. That point became time, and it's called a time loop. And your life just keeps repeating the loops. Another broken marriage, another such and such, another point of distrust, and all you're doing is re-experiencing the same what if I'm separate from love? Then this is what you would have. Terrible relationships. Somebody asked about the concept of a love compass without fully addressing that one. I can't go there completely, but that compass inside. Where am I right now? How do I get to the still point? So you have to go from the not so still point to the still point of choice and then back into the peace of God. You can't go from chaos to God. You have to choose not to do this world and choose to do a different world. You got a two-part choice right there. And when we do that, it's not like suddenly there's no time and you're in heaven and all that. It's measurable doses. So one day it's going to be simply a feeling like you're not as stressed about something as you were before. All of a sudden it's like, well, I feel okay. And it would help if you had more people around you midwifing that birth process for you. But everybody sits around waiting for somebody else to make it happen for them. See, I can't get you to make me feel more loved. What I can do is create more friendships that create that vessel. But I still have to drink from it. I still have to choose the peace you're offering me. So go ahead and be that midwife for people. But all you can do is present the offer, the opportunity. They still have to decide. You can say, I'll tell you what. You were saying to me, you've never had a good friend. No, I really haven't. I've tried and I haven't. What do you mean by good friend? Well, you know, somebody who I can call at any time. Okay, I'll tell you what. Here's my number. Day or night. Unless by chance something weird like my, phone went dead, I'm going to answer my phone for you, day or night. And I'll do it for like 90 days if you need me. Will that make a difference? Some of them will be like, oh my God, nobody's ever done anything for me. You're giving them an opportunity to change themselves. It's all right. But you can only give them an opportunity. Because they can still say, well, I still didn't believe you would actually answer if I called. That's because you want to stay sick. That's what's happening. You're not responsible for them not taking it when you offered the gift. All you can do is offer it. You can remind them, and I've done this. I mean, I'm a public speaker, that sort of thing, so I don't give my phone number out. It's best that I don't, but people do have it. And there are people who I've said, okay, this is one of those, where nobody's ever loved you and so on. So here's my number. And do you know 4 out of 5 times 9 out of 10 times, never hear from them again. Because they want to stay sick. That's what it is. I don't sit around and go, oh my God, like I failed it. No. All you can do is offer. They still have to make the decision to be different, to be healthy. But they're not used to that. People are more afraid of the new life than they are of the sick old life, as I said earlier. Which is insane. Well, yeah, that's right. It is insanity. That's why Jesus in A Course in Miracles is saying, this is a course in spiritual psychology. Well, why spiritual psychology? What does psychology have to do with anything? Because he's saying you're all mentally ill. You think you're these little dweebs on planet Earth that are waiting for life and death to come. That's what you think you are. That's called psychosis. You think you're someone or something that you're actually not. Yeah, you guys can go over there. There's seats over there too. There you go. You're welcome to sit over there. All right? That's psychosis. That's why he's going, you guys need not a ritual kind of technique. You don't need like a meditation technique and a prayer technique and, a baptismal kind. He's saying that's fine to do those things, but you're not needing those things. What you need is sanity. You're having a psychosis. You're believing that you're something that you're not. That's mental illness. He doesn't mean it like he's trying to be a psychotherapist and say you're hopeless of some kind. He's just saying when you forget your divinity, it's a psychosis. Because that's what it is when you walk around going, I'm Napoleon. It's kind of challenging. Your bank tellers, oh, okay, Mr. Napoleon, do you have any IDs to that effect? Well, no, but you just check my heart center and you'll know that I'm telling you the truth. I'm Napoleon. I remember being Napoleon. They're not going to give you any money. You can't collect Social Security as Napoleon. You can't do anything as Napoleon except hang out with Cleopatra. That's about it. That's about it. Have a come as you were party. Get it? Okay? Yeah, that's great. All right? So what else are you going to do? It's, okay, wait. I want to remember who I am. But I first have to be willing to make a choice, go to the still point, bravery of forgetting who I was. Oh, no. What do you mean? This my parents, they were this, and we had a reputable family. I'm not going to let that go. We had money. I'm not going to let that go. Or I was an abused child. That's all I know, and I can't let that go. My counselor said I need to embrace that I was abused. All kinds of false identities, all kinds of reasons to wear masks and then start to think you were that person of the mask. Remember the Twilight Zone episode? Where all these people put these masks on? And then the party, the host, if I remember somewhat, the theme, but the host of the party said, the reason I gave you all these horrible masks is because that's the way you people behaved. Selfish, miserly, wicked. So they wore these masks. And they thought, this is preposterous. They took off the masks and their faces had changed to those shapes. Wow. Yeah, right? And that's what we do. I remember one time, after a few years, having gotten out of my house and done my own thing and spiritual development and all that, it was probably, around the age of 20. And I remember I went to my mom's house and she started doing some typical trip, talking to me a certain way, and I started to respond a certain way, and then I thought, wait a minute. Ooh, good one. You almost baited me into responding as though, so I was finding that I was starting to become the person she was talking to that fashion. So she baited, hey, here's a pattern. Will you step into it with me? And you get hooked and on into it you go. And I went, wait a minute. No. No. No to the old. It's not always easy because the old is also known as patterns. I mean, what are patterns if not persistent? It's a program, it's a pattern, I'm used to it, all the excuses and reasons. Well, I had to do that because she was doing, no, I didn't. I just stopped. Nope, I'm not going to do that. You'll do it with your kids, you need to do it with your kids. You know, when I told mine at some point when they were, we needed to back off a little bit. You guys need to get your own lives. You're like 35 now. So you guys have to kind of, pay your own rent and one of them said, that's unfair. You've spoiled us for too long. I said, yeah, that'll be tough, won't it? My prayers with you. I'm affirming you'll be fine, You have to break the patterns, whatever they are, your own patterns of lazy or self-defeating or self-sabotaging, whatever it happens to be, low self-worth. Find your patterns. That's called know thyself. Have self-inventory. And then go, wow, look at this. I tend to smoke a lot when I'm sad. Let's look at that. That's not exactly a healthy pattern. You're trying to escape and it doesn't work. I'm not condemning smoking. I'm saying it doesn't work for what you're using it for. Way back, Edgar Casey said, actually a person having one cigarette a day, that's before a lot of preservatives and things they put in them, but back at that time, one cigarette a day, he said, in the channeled readings, would actually help exercise and clear your lungs. And he said, but how many people will only do one a day? So it's not the act, it's the way we do it and the intention behind it. Now that doesn't mean you go, well, exponentially, 10 cigarettes would probably really clear things up. No, it's the exercise of the lungs. Another thing you could use instead would be a balloon. Blowing up a balloon, that exercise of the lungs just the same, but that's another story. All right? So at some point, we need to say, I'm in the chaos, I'm going to choose the still point, and from the still point, I choose the peace of God. A double choice. You could say it's in a sense one choice, but it's got two parts to it. Some people will tell you only choose the light. No. You also have to choose not something else. Believe it or not. And I know there's popular little manifestation techniques. Oh, no, just focus on the positive. No, doesn't work in duration. You can't polish the outside of a tomb and think the inside person has resurrected. It doesn't work that way. Just focus on the positive. If I buff the outside tombstone, everything inside is different. No, you've got to work the inside as well. And what I mean by that is there are two paths with that caduceus that goes up the body. One side has to do with spirituality, true. But the other half is about healing. One of you is asking about healing again. So the neglect of healing sabotages people's spiritual growth. That's why I've had so many spiritual teachers using me as their healer. Because they're going, Michael, I should know better. I meditate, I do this, and I'm spiritual, and I've been teaching, and I have 50,000 students. But this thing keeps happening. I take them, we track it, and find out. And they're like, this one gal I remember, a major teacher, having all kind of students and all this, that, and the other, and Sacred Sites tours. But we sat down, and here comes this old childhood abuse stuff. And it was like cathartic for them to just breathe out and cry out some more of that stuff. It's also humbling to say, look, I'm a spiritual teacher. Whack at the ankles, humbled to the ground to say, I am allowed to teach. There's nothing wrong. Your ego's going to tell you, who are you to teach if you still have issues? That's dangerous. That's bogus. It's lying to you. Who am I to teach? A better teacher. Because I'm willing to own that those things can happen. Instead of saying, well, beloved students, one day you'll be perfect like me and not have any issues. Students should say, then why aren't you ascended yet? Why are you still here? Why do you still eat? Why do you still drink? Because you're here. So if you're here, there's lessons and healings. That's all you're here for. Lessons and healing, as well as to experience the gifts of the lessons and healings you've done. But everything's the spiritual path and the healing path. Two sides of the caduceus. Spiritual path, healing path. You can't do one and neglect the other. If all you do is healing, then all you're doing is bemoaning your history forever and never getting on to something new spiritually. If all you do is your spiritual stuff, you're trying to bypass and ignore the old wounds. Balance, balance, balance. That's all about mastery. Balance, balance. Today, a little healing I got to do. Wow. Take a week off, little bubble baths and things. Kind of nice. Kind of nice. Healing. Little sadness coming up. Do it. Then when you're done, when it feels like you're ready, resurrect and come to a new level of spirituality. Launch to another level. Believe it or not, as inconvenient as healing can seem, it gives you rocket fuel to launch better spiritually. But people think that if they have wounds, it tears them down spiritually. No, if you work it properly, it launches you. Your ego will wonder, well, where did you go? I'm still messing with your mind. And you're like, taken off. Because it says, I gave you some old junk to think about to depress you, and you launched. You're supposed to be in the grave, depressed over this. And you're like, oh, yeah, but I don't do that. I go into this stuff, I look at it, I track it, I work it, I cry it if I have to, scream it if I have to into a pillow, not at people, and so on. And then when I'm feeling like complete, I launch. I say, okay, I'm ready to resurrect. Lazarus, come forth. Yes, Master. And out you come. Onward you go. That whole redemption concept, the laws of grace. You don't stay wounded and broken. That's not all the way home. But you also don't, try to avoid it, bypass it. A balanced path, spiritual and the other. So time starts to become this interesting thing because you start feeling like and experiencing as though you're not in part of time anymore. This happened just a couple days ago when all of a sudden I went, where did the last 30 minutes go? I mean, it was kind of awkward. We all have that now and again. But this was a really significant one of those where I'm like, I'm looking for ships, any kind of abduction, okay, and in time, missing time. I'm thinking, okay, no, doesn't feel like missing time. Something else happened. And there's a couple things I want to say about that. But something happened, and I'm going, wow. Whenever you have one of those moments, barring the fact that you might have had an alien abduction, when that happens, one thing you can assure yourself about, which is, I must have had some sort of dismantling. The only time you can feel disoriented, which is, I just lost half an hour, any time in your life when you feel disoriented, again, barring a conk on the head, feeling disoriented, or drug of some kind, feeling disoriented, I'm not talking about those, I'm talking about some organic process. Suddenly you feel disoriented. When that's happened, that means you have to have experienced recently some form of a dismantling, which means the rug pulled out, or it could mean an old belief system just left. Something has to have ended. Then you had to have felt empty for a moment, even if you didn't know it. Dismantling, you can never just become, or disoriented rather, you can never just become disoriented organically. Something has to have left and then left you feeling disoriented. So when you feel disoriented, you could pause and say, thank you. Because something must have just happened for me. I must have just experienced some sort of a death and resurrection. I don't know what it means. I don't know what to do with it because I'm still kind of freaked, but it's okay. The one I had the other day was intense enough to make me go, like check in for a minute. But I maybe 5 seconds total, but it felt like minutes. But a few seconds of, that's a bit an intense version of that. And here's what I did. And I often do this. What would I tell someone else? And then it was done. When I think about channeling myself, like if one of you asked me, what would I tell you right now? I usually get the same answers I would get for you. And that really helps. So remember this. When you're not sure guidance and you're not sure what, just imagine. If you like my talks, imagine what I would say during a talk and you'll have an answer. Imagine talking to God and get an answer. Don't leave yourself in the fear. Just imagine having an answer. So in that moment, I was going, well, let's see. This is feeling kind of intense. What would I tell others as a teacher? And then I got my answer. Is that making sense? It's kind of like I'm channeling you, sitting here in my mind, sitting here, and I'm talking to you. It's just a way of being a surrogate to myself, channeling what I would answer to you if you asked me the same question. It's a good way to get kind of an objective bit of feedback. Just keep that in mind. So that thing about choosing that still point seems like, ooh, wow, still point. It's going to be still point meditation. And then it sounds like it'd be really cool when you experience it, because you can do it in meditation and go, well, oh, wow, and I'm feeling this stillness and everything's kind of connected and calm and peaceful. That's nice. But when it kicks in as an effect in the middle of a project, like, you're cooking and all of a sudden the meal's gone. And wait, I just started the fire a second ago. Where did the last half hour go? Who was stir frying? How did it get all perfect? I was not even here. That seems disturbing. It does. Oh my God, I got to go get the kids. Oh, wait, they're here. So I was gone a whole time. I got in the car, went to get the kids, came home with the kids, fed them their lunch, and then went, oh, I'm back. That can be dangerous. It'd be hard to go to authorities or your counselor and say, I'm not even there when I go get the kids and drive. That would be kind of scary, dangerous. It reminds me of my ex, sweet girl, that we were married way, way back. And, she had a lot of abuse. So I finally talked her into seeing a counselor and working on some of that stuff objectively with somebody else. And she came back and she said, well, he said, do you, a little kind of criteria, a little questionnaire she had to answer. And one of the questions, Michael, he asked me, do you ever hear voices? And I said, doesn't everyone? And she goes, he looked up and went, no. I'm like, oh, remind me next time I'm going to have to help you rehearse your answers, Bless you. But it's like that, guys. The still point sounds kind of cool, easy. It can be weird for us because it's another reality. Mostly, it's a feeling. There's a metaphysics to it. There's a quantum physics to it. But mostly, just look for it as a feeling. I feel somehow okay. I'm going to tell somebody about some of this really deep old stuff. Issues, hurts, wounds. That's the lower realm here. And I'm going to talk about it and feel safe. That's the still point too. Anytime you act as a good midwife to people, anytime a good counselor, a good parent or whatever, where you're holding space, still point space, then they can come from here up to where you are and meet you there. And that's a holy relationship between any two people of any type, classification. After I've done that, God awaits me to make the next move. Not literally me making the move, but God awaits my readiness to say, how comfortable, my child, are you? I see that you're halfway home. Are you comfortable with that? Kind of. Well, until the cooking thing, and until the kids showed up in the house without me remembering to pick them up, then we better just leave you there for a bit. But when you say, you know what, it was freaky, but I adapted and I'm okay, you're starting to create a greater, wider space for the light of God to come in and say, hello, still point child, would you like to go home? For a moment, for a day, for a week, don't get into time. Don't get into how long you see purple when you meditate. Don't get into how long you see gold in your crown when you meditate. Forget time when you're trying to get into timelessness of God. Forget time. It doesn't translate well. As soon as you start going, well, let's see, and looking at a watch or clock, literally or figuratively, you'll lose that still point. Okay, so fine, I'm going to sit in the still point. But God, you are aware. I do have children to pick up, so let's get this done. Let's be really holy and spiritual, but there's got to be time limits. I'm on earth. That's what happens in all bodies. The concerns of the material world will drop you from still point back to earth. Is that bad? Not at all. You should be celebrating you even made it there. So own that. Own that. Really embrace that and own that. God, I made it. That was really cool. Tell other people about it. This really trippy thing happened. Still point, etc. And then they'll start to go, I didn't know about that. So let me try that. And you'll be spreading the miracle by sharing the miracle. But first, own it in yourself. Still point can happen when you're making love. Still point can happen when you're holding a child and rocking them to sleep. Miracles can happen like that. One time I was sitting after a conference I did, and there's all these, the major speakers and musicians that you would all know if I name the names. And we're all sitting at this table and kind of having like a gathering of the spiritual leaders after the conference, having this wonderful spiritual leader table talk. So we're all like, yeah, it was great. Oh, I loved your talk. And, I really love this. And, oh, thanks for the music. That was great background you did for my meditation. All that kind of great feedback. But I'm the type, like, I've got this like spider senses, It's a little one of those miracle superhero kind of vibes that we all have in us. But I start getting this, there's something else going on in the room. And I'm kind of like, And it can be called hypersensitive, but hyper would mean out of control, and it doesn't feel out of control, so it's not hyper. But it's nicely sensitive. And I noticed there's this couple with a newborn, and they're sitting there, and, I can just see them kind of looking up, It's them. Those are the spiritual leaders at the conference. Don't let them see you looking. We don't want them to know we're staring. And I'm sensing this whole thing. They want to sit, in our presence, because we're just so damned holy. It's just amazing. So they're sitting there, and I'm watching, noting, hearing, feeling the whole experience. And I just do that kind of a thing where I'm like, well, what do I need to be doing? I don't care that I'm sitting at the table with all kinds of spiritual leaders. That's nice. And if nothing else is needed, I'm going to be fully there. Something else is needed, I'm not fully there. I have something else I need to be doing. That's how I work anyway. I'm not telling you it's right for you. I'm just saying that's what happens for me. So, Hey guys, just gradual. Hey, how are you? Oh, he said hi. Oh, hi. Hi, good to see you. Oh, thank you for your talk. Oh, you're welcome. I wait a moment, then I go, you guys want to come and join us? And oh my God. Will you sign my napkin? Sure. And then they're going, but we have a baby that's crying and it's kind of being, I'll hold the baby. So I went to their table and held their baby, put it to sleep, while they went and got to sit with the gods, of the universe. And that felt good to me, and they're like, this is odd. And shh, don't question it. But why did you, it doesn't, you can't explain miracle consciousness. They're wondering why I did it. And they felt bad that I did it, but they felt great and why analyze it? This is what was needed in the moment. I'm just as happy sitting there holding the baby. Just, a little sound, little song, and just kind of rocking. I'm feeling like, wow, something perfect happened. This restless baby that was crying, they couldn't get to settle down, held it. A minute later, it's calming. A minute later, it's snoozing, and we're good. So something perfect happened right here. And something perfect happened right over there, too. You follow? So that still point where it's holding space for people and saying, there's a still point. Would you like to, you want to try this? And God is saying that all the time. So when you help create a still point presence for people in this world of time, you're being as God. All right? When you say, what can I do to help? And you hold the vessel, you're being as the mother, the Holy Spirit. You're doing the will of God. But what's interesting also is this point, still point. Out of this still point came billions of years. Oh, lifetimes and karma and this and that. You owe me and I owe you. And so many things to figure out. I got to heal this and I got to do. When you do this properly in measure of healing and spirituality, and you get it, you enter an elevator that runs all the way through time, the time loops of billions of years. You enter an elevator that takes you up to the still point. You're not, okay, I've been around for 1 billion years and I've got, let's just say 100 lifetimes. Oh my God, that's a lot of healing I got to do. I better get to work. What happens is it's happening for you. When you find that center, we talked about, holding our center last week, finding and maintaining that center. When we get into that center, it's like it's an elevator that takes you back to the still point between time and timelessness. Now, as that elevator's moving, you'll still feel as though there's the winds of the hurricane of life still spinning. You can still sense that the world is still happening, but you don't care as much in the ego sense, the pain, fear-based sense. It's not like you're just oblivious. You can be in the still point, you can be in the elevator and still take out the trash. It's okay. Chop wood, carry water. Before enlightenment and after enlightenment, you still take out the trash. And that's okay. But you feel different about it. It's the strangest thing. It's not, oh, I forgot, I've got to take out the trash. It's, I get to. This is great. I get to. Well, what do you mean get to? What's so exciting about it? Well, the alternative would be having twice as much next week. I get to. And your trash guy comes by. Well, he's supposed to. He's supposed to pick up the trash. You know what? Once in a while, I put an envelope, tape it to the trash can, put $10 in it. Because thank you for doing this. One time I happened to see the guy pull up, I was at my office and I could see him. And it was the funniest thing. He gets out, gets the envelope thinking, it says, to them, he opens it up. And I swear to God, I'm watching. And this was only $10. And I see this, like it was quiet. It was out on the street, but I'm like, wow, I got to give 20 next time, He might start, doing moonwalking and, like, wow, this is, really trippy, But how beautiful. In another form, that was inviting him to the still point. Because in the still point, you feel loved. The love compass that was asked about. It's like saying, am I feeling in my center? Love that isn't in my center isn't real love at all. And more people have to find real love. And it'll go from human love that's improved human love. It will go through stages to improved. Then it'll become fulfilling. And then it becomes divine. But you don't go from completely dysfunctional, codependent to divine love. There's awakenings. And every time I get back to that still point, back to the elevator that takes me to the still point. The elevator is my center. The center, the more I live from there, it takes me, because it's an elevator, it takes me to my still point. The still point isn't the end, but the still point is my heart center where I meet God. The still point is where time began. And it became 1 billion years. Around and around. The wheel of life, as Buddha calls it. It's just, oh my God, never ending. And some people say it's so beautiful, the wheel of life. It actually isn't. It's okay that it seems like it, but it actually isn't that beautiful. You can say, I love the fact that flowers bloom. Do you like the fact that people die? Because that's this realm. In heaven, there's flowers and no death. There's only love, there's only life. And some people, well, we have to accept it. No, you don't. You do not have to have death. Well, I'm okay with death, but not everybody else is, even if you think you are. So the fact that any human being should die in pain or suffering, or to lose a loved one, it doesn't feel very good if you're honest about it. You can try to justify and philosophize to us and say, but death is a natural part, so I'm okay. I'm glad for you. Good job. But the fact that even one human being suffers is not okay. It means we're not home. So if you can just care enough for someone besides yourself, even if you justify and say, you're fine with death, the fact that someone else isn't is enough to say something's wrong with this picture. People are okay with Buddha's teaching as long as it fits them. It's kind of funny. Oh, I really love the Buddha. See, like there's a chant right here of Buddha. But you don't like when he says certain things. It's like, oh, I don't like that. You want to pretend he didn't say it. He was awakened and he said certain things you might want to pay attention. And one of them, it says, this world offers you nothing but suffering. Because if you get what you want in this world, it's not going to stay. And that'll cause you suffering. If you don't get what you want in this world, that's already suffering. So it's like either way, it's not so good. But he's making a valid point. This is not your home. So therefore, settling for it is going to bring you eventual pain. Because at some point, you're going to realize, I'm not home. In what way? Any form of suffering. So if you want to say that you believe in some of Buddha's teachings, then how about his teaching of being fooled into thinking there was no death or sickness? Because his father decided, his fake father on this planet tries to make it look like everything's just peachy. Right? Everything's good. Nobody gets sick. So when he sees sickness and death, he's going, what is that? Oh, that's a sick person. What's sick? That's how sheltered he was as an earthly prince. There's no such thing. What do you mean sick? Well, they're in pain. What is pain? Then he starts seeing dead people being burned on funeral pyres around the villages and, in the waters. And what is that? That's somebody died. Well, what do you mean? Well, how did they die? They got old or they got sick. What do you mean? What's that? So obviously that oblivion of thinking everything in this world is peachy, and he had the great version of that, it doesn't last. So he said, something's wrong with this picture, and I've got to figure out what it is. So he's meditating, and then he goes, I'm trying to fix it. And what I needed to understand, there is no it. It's a hologram. You and I are all still right there at the precipice of knowingness of God, the unknowingness of the illusionary world. Conscious, unconscious. We're right at the precipice. And we get to choose every day which one we're going to experience. So at that point, at that still point, real love, false love, peace, conflict, and so on. Right at that point. So when we do our best to hold consciousness, to hold our center, we're taking the elevator back to that point where we can choose again, as A Course in Miracles calls it. You're going to sit at best in this planet, you're going to sit at that precipice and be shown these alternatives. And most of the time, a human being is going to fail their test. Because even if you get to that, most people are just swirling around in the drama. But even the initiate on the path that gets in the elevator by some practice or another, and they get to that still point, and they're shown, because Buddha was shown, here's the world. And he had to say, no reaction. And he wakes up. And that's your destiny and mine. Maybe I've had that. Maybe you've had that. But it's our destiny to have that all the time. You don't have to go, oh, God, I better get to work. Don't make it about intense work. I get to try that again. Oh, that was really cool. Lasted 5 minutes. Oh, I wish it would have lasted 10. But this is great. I got to have that. The more you do it, you make it more inviting for it to return. The more you get frustrated, and how can I get that to happen again? You've shut the door on it. Unconditional love, respect for yourself and the experience will attract it more, as opposed to trying and doing. So I'm in this point and say, wow, So how do I know that I'm even close to the elevator of choice? How do I know I'm even close to the still point of waking up? And the point, it's the point of, it's not awake, it's the point of choosing to awake. How do I know when I'm there? Every time you have to choose between love and forgiveness versus grievance, you must have been there. The ego isn't going to just allow you to get to that peaceful point and let you walk through to heaven. Your ego is all about conflict. It's all about keeping you away from that elevator and that point. So you're just swirling around in the drama. When you're in denial, you're most likely doing this. Oh, yeah, that's the way life is. I can't do anything about it. That's usually this. As soon as you even remotely said, wait, what's that? An elevator. I wonder where that goes. Your ego has to set you up with some tests. Tests that would be something resentful, some grievance to not let go of. Then elevator shuts before you get to it, like some bad movie or dream. I keep trying to get in this elevator. Doors keep closing just when I get there. That would be the kind of experience people would have. So I know that I'm getting there. I've been in this marriage, divorce, and I'm thinking, I want to practice forgiveness with this person. And then they call. That means I must have got close to that elevator or to the still point because they called. And it didn't go well. It's those moments, where you're kind of hoping for something wonderful to happen. And it doesn't happen. And that's out of the elevator, get out, back into the swirl. And that's what happens when we fail our tests. So you're not bad for having been tested. The fact that you're being tested must be testimony that you're close to something. Your ego doesn't just put you through hellacious tests when you're already insane. It would rather not work. It's called conserving energy. You look miserable. I'll come back and check on you later. That's kind of how it does that. It's when you're like going, it goes, it's like slows down. What are you doing? I was just thinking about doing some healing work, or I was thinking about getting into recovery. Oh, no. We can't be having that. You're going to go into recovery? Really? Okay, let's go. I'm going to go with you to a program. Meeting. You sit down and they start talking about their stuff and their pain, and they're tracking and looking at what caused them to do this and their character flaws. And you're like, this doesn't look helpful at all. When I'm stoned, everybody likes me. At least it seems like it, and I kind of like that. Everybody just seems to be smiling a lot. It's because they're stoned. It's when they sober up, you're like, I need a divorce. I need new friends. That's not real. Anyway. Yeah. So think about that. It's coming to a close. Healing is half of your spiritual path. Please remember that always. It's half of your path. You don't go, I used to do healing stuff. Now I'm on the spiritual path. I don't need it. A lot of people fall into that illusion. It's not correct. It's half and half, and they're constantly massaged. Sometimes it's a lot of one, sometimes a lot of another, but it's really supposed to be on an as-needed basis. Whatever I'm being called to do, I'm going to step in and do it. How do I know which one? Well, which one is happening? A lot of stuff, triggers been happening lately. There you go. I feel pretty good about myself inside and out. I feel okay, good. I feel good. But I'm conducting this everyday Zoom program we're doing for free for everybody, that wants to be in it. They can go on this program, but in the program, people are asking questions about my childhood or their own child. So a lot of topics, not all, but several times the topic of, childhood stuff has come up. So I find myself answering their questions and they're answering each other, and we're all doing this work. And I caught myself and went, this is interesting. By coincidence, we're doing a lot of childhood healing stuff. So instead of going, we should move on to spiritual things, I just went, wow, I too must be riding the same bus with you folks on some more healing on some level. So if that's the bus I'm on, so be it. That's the one that pulled up and I got on. Well, I didn't realize it, but you're on it, so ride it. Go with the wave. So I went, okay, and so some of that's kind of happened. If it's happening, it's happening. And if you're feeling inclined, oh my God, meditation, deeper meditation, and staying with it. The other day I was like filling this call and going, I'm going to go into like a full day of meditative process and so on. Okay, then that's what I'm going to do. When something shows up, I just I double check, and step into it and then just go with it. So remember, the healing path is part of that. But remember that time seems to exist. The more you're caught up on time, the more you're, I'm getting old. That's not I'm in the elevator and I'm in my still point. I'm getting old. That's not a statement of I'm at peace. You're letting time, which is the illusion of you being separate from God, be confirmed. When it's, some other time issue, being late all the time, not showing up on time. When the word time shows up in your life a lot, it's probably telling you you're not in your center. If you're in your center, you will be on time. I'm sorry I'm late. I was just so in my center. No, dumbass. If you were in your center, you'd have shown up on time. these goofy spiritual, no. Show up. Come on. Show up. Be on time. Take care of the practical matters. The mess is a term that's endearingly used in some states. It's the common term some places, like where I've been. Okay? So it's like, come on, goof. You're in your center, you'll be on time. You're in your center, you'll take care of all chakras. You're in your center, you'll be in the present, and in the present, you'll know there's something for you to take care of. Instead of, man, I'm just so in the moment that I never get anything done. No. If you're in the present, you'll know that we presently need you to do something. Come on. All the pseudo-spiritual stuff. So, watch if and when time becomes an issue for you. Oh, I'm getting old, so, I don't do certain things as much anymore. It's not about old. You do them or you don't do them. Don't blame it on age. Don't blame it on time. Just don't do them anymore. Say, I'm not into that. Say, that's not my thing. Name it as a choice you're making, not time. Make time an enemy, and it'll kill you. Prematurely. Just be in the perfection of whatever's happening in the moment, which isn't easy because all the universe is trying to take you through the opposite and tell you that time is wearing you down, that time has power over you. So in that still point, but just say to yourself, I feel all this, but somewhere in here, I'm okay. So show me that place, Mother or God. So you don't pretend this isn't all seemingly happening, the chaos of life. Just say, despite that, there's another way of looking at this. There's another way of being. There's another way of feeling. And I'm determined to find that other way. And if all I do is calm down my tension scale of a 10 down to an 8, nice job. Down to an 8. Well, it's not a 0. Shh. Doing it again. Relax. Give thanks. Well, it did. It came down to an 8. And I didn't even do anything. So that must have been some sort of miracle shift that happened. Nice job. Pretty cool that you got a miracle. And if you got a miracle, you might be able to get another one. Because you've experienced it, it's in you. So now, peace. More peace. I'm calling more and more peace into my life. And my tension level goes from a 10 to a 5, and it's like, wow, I'm already there, man. But I'm not a 0. I don't care. I feel I'm there. I'm back to that 0 point tension-wise. I'm down to, on some level, I'm there. I've never left heaven. I've never left God. I'm here that had a dream, a fantasy. What would life be like to separate? That drew me from the oneness with God to a choice still point, where I made a choice to enter a world that is a spinning, endless time loop. But it isn't the eternity of God. It's a false version of eternity. Oh, you'll be here forever. You're evolving, cycling around and around. According to some systems, you're going to be doing this for billions more years before you evolve into the intelligence of a turnip. They act like, oh, you've got to become a turnip before you become a this and that and evolve. And then one day you'll be enlightened again. So try this. I'm already there. On some level, I'm already there. If I don't feel it yet, I guess I have some more moments to choose again. Don't act like you're here spinning by some philosophical or spiritual teaching that tells you you've got to evolve for billions of years to even become remotely awake. Cancel that out and say, wait, there's a secret that everybody's forgotten. We came here and started doing this and thought, well, I'm gonna get on the evolving spinning around and around. But you're still spinning. So try something else and say, wait, what if part of me is spinning, but that's not the real me? What if the real me is here? Dreaming that I'm at a still point making choices, and then that choice, when I make an ill choice, that I'm flawed, throws me down into here. So what if I reverse it? What if I keep practicing to make new choices that I am as God created me? But that's a lie, unless you can believe that others are also as God created them. See, if you try to become a mystic and say, I am as God created me, and you people are really messed up, then you're lying to yourself. It's a sentence. I am as God created me. You can really only get that when you're also simultaneously able to say, and so are you. And I mean, you have to be willing to say that even to disturbing relations of yours. Don't call the disturbing part the God part. Just say, I'm so sorry that you and I met in such turmoil and illusion. I'm so sorry that you and I met, both of us forgetting who we were. Guess what? We're one, and this part of our one is choosing to be here with God, which means I take you with me. Not only do I refuse to try to go without you, I can't go without you. I only enter the ark of peace 2 by 2, like the animals into the ark. So I'm inviting you to go with me. What if they say, no, it doesn't matter. You're already going with me anyway. They'll say, see, typical control freak. I've always told you you're a control freak, and I'm okay with that. When it comes to someone accepting your holiness and mine, I'm absolutely okay with being called a control freak because we're going home today. Hold that determination. Please take a few centering breaths. I hope I addressed most or all of the comments, okay? Centering. For today's meditation, let's not do like a visualization per se, not a lengthy journey. Let's just for a moment imagine that no matter what's happening in the world and life, that we are back to our still point. What if you're at a point where you can decide that nothing has any power or control over you? And let's do that for a minute or two straight. No matter what comes up into your mind, say, take a breath and go back to still point where I am in the peace of God. If your attempt to reach the still point ever involves getting away from bad people, pulling away from negative people, then we're still not getting it. In the still point, there are no others. There are no issues to heal. Everyone and everything is reconciled into the peace of God. And we give thanks for the ever-loving presence that is God, that it is attainable, reachable, because we've never left it. This is who and what I am. Help me, Mother, Holy Spirit of God. Help me birth this part of myself more. Help me to stay determined to know this part of myself. Help me to know and be determined to know this I am presence in others. There is no one I could imagine leaving behind because there is no one else. So I'm celebrating right here, right now. I'm home. At the doorway, home. And I'm choosing to step through it into the peace of God. And therein carrying everyone else with me. There is no one else. I/we go home together. And so it is. Nice job. Thank you, folks.